Everybody here. Yesterday was Jenica's wedding. There's Sherry and Michael. Grandma Clark. Tate, Kayleen, Jana, Sarah, Katie. And Grandpa Clark has a quick family history story for us.
Well, part of the family history is just a matter of trivia. This is what my dad, Grandpa Clark, would do often. Guess what happened 111 years ago today? That's when Grandpa was born, on April 3rd of 1905. So he'd be 111, and he died 20 years ago on April 10th. Now we'll get to the real story of some family history. And it was about 10 or 15 years ago. We had a family reunion at our house. At that time, I wondered, who were the missionaries who brought my ancestors into the church? And so one of my cousins came who said, well, I want to talk about the missionaries that brought the gospel to the Clark ancestors. And wow. And he said, to do that, I want to get into the Doctrine and Covenants, section 52. And I said, there's no Clarks mentioned in the Doctrine and Covenants. What is he going to be talking about here? So in Doctrine and Covenants 52 is when Joseph Smith, the church was only 1 year old, so Joseph Smith was commanded along with about 23 other elders to go down to Missouri. They didn't know exactly where, but the Lord would show them that that's where the center stake of Zion was going to be, where Zion was going to be redeemed, and everybody that joined in the church back then was to go to Missouri. So Joseph Smith and Sidney Rigdon are the first two that are mentioned to go down. That's in verse 6 of section 52. And in verse 7, it says that Lyman, White, and John Corill were supposed to go speedily to Missouri. So on their way to Missouri, they stopped in southern Illinois and met a family there who is Sanford Porter, who is our ancestor, like a great-great-great-grandpa. And so Sanford Porter had several dreams about joining the church. And so when these missionaries came by, he said Lyman, White, and John Corill came by. And Sanford Porter was appropriately skeptical about their message. In other words, you don't want to have somebody present the gospel message and somebody just become a puppet and say, okay, whatever. And so instead of that, he was skeptical that night, but during the night, he had a dream or a vision, or I forget the exact details. But in it, he was told that what those missionaries were telling him was true. So he awakened the next day, and it was that day or the following when he got baptized. So that was Sanford Porter, who eventually became a pioneer and is buried in the cemetery in Porterville, Utah, which is by Morgan, which is by Ogden. Sanford Porter, one of his business acquaintances, was Timothy Baldwin Clark. And so Sanford, upon being baptized, was set apart right then as the branch president, as a missionary. So he took the gospel up to Timothy Baldwin Clark, who again was a business associate. And it wasn't, I think, till a couple of years later that Timothy Baldwin Clark eventually joined the church. So on my dad's side, the Clark side, that's how Timothy Baldwin came in. And then on my grandmother's side, which would be Grandma Ann Eliza Porter out of Porterville. So you trace back the Porters to Sanford. And so he was the one that joined the church. So now I know, and you guys, everyone can know who the missionaries were that brought the gospel to the Porters and to the Clarks. And so that was, again, Lyman, White, and John Corill.
Great. Thank you. All right. Yay. Great.